Hydro Cannon, gonna get this Medicham low, and then we're gonna put it all on 2-shield Sableye. We are gonna respect the Ice Punch, and then it's gonna be Sableye versus Knockdown. We've got that big power gem coverage. The opponent comes out, they're gonna fire off the Sky Attack. We're obviously gonna respect it with our final shield. We're gonna full send the power gem, hoping the opponent looks to call the bait. The opponent shields it up. Sableye now gonna have to settle for a foul play, but is foul play gonna be enough to knock out? Well, you're going to have to watch the video to find out. So welcome back to the home of Shadow Pokemon. My name is Jamie Finn, 1415. I was the first documented trainer in the wild to reach Legend only using Shadow Pokemon. I've now achieved that 5 times, Season 8 through to 12. So I think it's fair to say I know a thing or two about using Shadow Pokemon. Today I'm going to bring you, in my opinion, this season's strongest Triple Shadow team in the Open Great League. This is a variation of the team I used back in Season 10 to reach Legend. I was using Beedrill back then, but here's the reason why I switched to Galvantula. Flyers are absolutely everywhere, and unlike Beedrill, our pesky little spider does only take neutral, and we are hitting back for super effective. The reason I like having a bug with both Swampert and Sableye in the back, as bulky dark types like Obstagoon and Umbreon can be a problem. So in this battle, we managed to win lead. The opponent sends out Froslass. I never bait. However, the opponent gonna be shielding up this lunge. And I did debuff him to try and force the opponent to throw and not commit to a farm down. The opponent does dump that energy. We're now in the 1-to-1 shield. As we get off that debuff as well, it does now mean I can bring in Sableye. We can easily tank one move. You can see my beautiful 0-15-15 IVs. This is my absolute prized possession. Tanks the Shadow Ball like an absolute champ. The opponent sends out their own Sableye. We're going to look to chip it with the foul play, commits the final shield, and when shields are down, Shadow Swampert absolutely goes to town. I will be investing my final protect shield here on the foul play. I'm then going to overfarm. Earthquake will be vanquishing Sableye back to their Pokeball. When Froslass does return, we're going to outpace to the Hydro Cannon, and that is going to be all she wrote. GG's, and thanks for playing. Moving on to the next battle, we lead Galvantula into Stunfisk. You hate to see it. An instant pivot into Sableye. The opponent answers with Knockdown. Knockdown supposed to beat Sableye. This is absolutely why you want to run Shadow, because 2 foul plays more or less knockout. Whereas if you're going to use the regular, you need to land the return. The opponent has enough for the harder hitting Shadow Ball. The opponent just goes for a Sky Attack, so I'm now going to overfarm. Fire off on the CMP tie to the next Sky Attack. The opponent does commit a shield. This is only another Sky Attack. I know my IVs will survive this, and I'm looking to reach one more foul play. Shadow Sableye coming in absolutely clutch on the say switch. This is either going to flip switch or force the final shield, and the opponent commits that final shield. We're now putting it all on Swampert, looking to go for a very impressive sweep. We're not going to shield anything here. Sky Attack is going to do a lot. Galvantula super glassy. We're now going to commit to the Volt Switch farm down. I'm spamming out into Swampert, looking to close. The opponent's final Pokemon is Medicham, and the GOAT is about to do GOAT things. If you're wondering why I call Shadow Swampert the GOAT, it is without a doubt the most ruthless closer of them all. Shadow Swampert only needs 2 Hydro Cannons to knock out this super bulky fighter. This is only an Ice Punch. I'm going to save my final shield. This Hydro Cannon will be returning Medicham to their Pokeball. Stunfisk is going to return. They're going to fire off the Rock Slide. This is where I will invest that final shield. They're now 5 away from the next Rock Slide, so I'm going to throw 5 Mud Shots to maximise the amount of Mud Shot damage I do. Fire off the Hydro Cannon on the CMP tie. This is going to get Stunfisk super low, and we're now at a stage where Galvantula is about to be a Bear Trap counter confirmed. Rock Slide takes me out. Lunge more than enough to knock out, and despite hard losing lead, we managed to pick up another very nice dub. Let's go. Moving on to the next one. Galvantula into Trevenant. The Shadow Claw is going to be tearing us apart. Our Volt Switches are resisted. Lunge hits for neutral. This should be drawing a shield, as Trevenant users love to shield. The other thing you need to note about Trevenant users, they love to bait. When I've used both Beedrill and Galvantula, I think in all the time I've run it, I've only ever been Shadow Balled once. The opponent does commit to the full farm down. They are debuffed, so I will be able to survive a Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball does quite a lot of damage. I'm looking to farm down. The opponent gets to the C-Bomb on minimal HP. I'm just going to completely sack Sableye. The thing is, if you've got Trevenant in the front, you're going to be weak to Swampert in the back. 2-shield Swampert versus the world. Let's see what the opponent wants to bring out. The opponent sends out the bear trap, behind on energy and shields. I overfarm, fire off the earthquake on a CMP tie to the opponent's earthquake. The opponent looks to call the hydro cannon bait and hashtag I'm not baiting. They've got Lanturn in the back and this is going to be game over. To be honest, I could rudely 2-shield flex, but I am going to shield up the surf. Again, there's no baits. The opponent probably going to look to call the bait, and once again there's no baits. Get wrecked. Moving on to the next one. Galvantula into Medicham, a pretty good lead. We do resist the counters due to our bug typing. I'm going to look to debuff them immediately. With the lunge, it looks like a CMP tie, so this is only an ice punch. The opponent actually shields it up, so they might be weak to Galvantula in the back. But the thing is, I know I'm not going to get taken out by an ice punch. There's no chance they can farm us down. The opponent looks to aggressively bring out Charizard. As I did for a Volt Switch, this is enough for a Blast Burn. Shadow Swampert will survive. It does get me super low, but I'm not willing to shield this up. Hydro Cannon's either going to knock out or force the final shield. The opponent is now all shields down. And 2-shield Shadow Sableye, pretty good unless you see a Charmer. To be honest, Charm not that common in this meta. You do see the occasional A9. However, we've got Power Gems, so even A9 is going to get wrecked. I am going to shield up a potential Blast Burn. The opponent full sends it. We commit to the Shadow Claw farm down. The opponent can't really return with Medicham, or at least you'd think not, because Medicham has a dreadful matchup here. The opponent does send out Medicham. We're going to overfarm, fire off the Foul Play. Foul Play won't knock out, but we will be able to Shadow Claw, farm them down afterwards. I am going to invest the final Protect Shield here to keep some health. The opponent sends out Knocked Out, and Knocked Out is in big trouble. Power Gem going to do a lot of damage. We're then going to look to Wham Bam combo play into the Spider. The Spider is going to reach the Discharge. Discharge is going to return Knocked Out to their Pokeball, and 1 Volt Switch is enough to take that game. Moving on to the next battle. Although Galvantula is really spicy, it beats a lot of the most common leads, such as Medicham. And again, we see a basic bitch using Medicham. We fire off the lunge. The opponent shields it up. People seem to be absolutely petrified of this Galvantula. The opponent farms up to what could be a Psychic. They bait me with an Ice Punch and we show no respect. The opponent looks to catch a charge move. I anticipated them trying to catch it on something that resists bug. They caught the Discharge to the face on Knocked Out. We now come into Sableye, reach the Foul Play on a CMP tie. The opponent just lets it go and then they concede the match. GG's. Moving on to the next one. Galvantula into Froslass. Pretty neutral matchup here. The thing is with Galv users, a lot of them love to bait, and I'm full sending the Discharge, hoping the opponent thinks they're going to call a bait. Hashtag no baits. The opponent unfortunately shields it up. However, unlike the first battle we saw in the video, as I'm at full health, they can't Powder Snow farm me down, so I am going to allow Galvantula to go down. We can now come into Sableye, shield once, Shadow Claw it all the way down, and we're going to leave with a boatload of energy. The opponent goes for the Avalanche. They aren't going to make another move, so either way, we get the full farm down. We're absolutely loaded. The opponent sends out a Azumarill. I'm going to send the Power Gem. This chip damage will more or less put the opponent into Earthquake range. I pivot out into Swampert and the opponent is staying in. This is only 6, so at worst it is a Play Rough. They haven't built up to a Hydro Pump. Play Rough does a lot of damage. The opponent doesn't switch out, so I full send the Earthquake. Earthquake does land. The opponent now pivots out into Sableye. We reach the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon should be pressuring the final shield. The opponent actually lets it go, fearful of the energy on Sableye, and that is a huge mistake. I think they're pretty fucked either way, to be honest. I am just going to shield this up, Shadow Claw down, and Sableye is just going to Shadow Claw down the remainder of the team. And we chalk up another dub. Moving on to the next one. Galvantula into Knocked Out. The opponent is staying in. They throw on alignment, giving me a full 3 Volt Switch. I am going to shield up the Sky attack. I'm going to throw one more Volt Switch. Fire off the Discharge. The opponent makes a great catch, catching the Discharge onto Medicham. It's a nice catch from the opponent, but as we resist counters, I can just farm up 2 more Volt Switches and send out Sableye. Sableye is going to be able to tank any one move. We're going to completely Shadow Claw farm them down, and we're going to leave with residual energy. We are down a shield. We've got energy on 2 hard-hitting Pokemon. The opponent sends out Knocked Out. I farm up fire on the CMP side. Let's see if the opponent wants to commit a shield. Yes, they do. I'm just going to allow my Sableye to go down. Switch timers are misaligned, so I do have to be mindful of that. However, I believe this Knocked Out is still switch locked. I throw one further Volt Switch and the Lunge. Lunge is resisted, but easily enough to knock out. The opponent's final Pokemon is Lanturn, and we're going to permanently debuff him. With the Lunge, the opponent commits the final shield, we show him Swampert, and the opponent concedes the match. Moving on to the next one. Galvantula into Sableye, a pretty neutral matchup. I am going to send the Lunge, the opponent takes the extra, knowing they'll lose CMP. Lunge is going to debuff the opponent, and the opponent commits a shield. The opponent then throws 2 Shadow Claws and the charge move. Dreadful fast move timing. That is on alignment. So if you're using 2 turn versus 4 turn, always throw on odd numbers. I fire off the next Lunge. The opponent commits the final shield. I'm just going to allow Galvantula to go down now. The opponent is 2-stage debuffed. So I can just come in with my own Sableye. They are going to make a charge move, but double debuff. This isn't going to do a lot. We can now Shadow Claw farm them all the way down. What does the opponent want to come in? Well, they come into Bastiodon. I send out Swampert. Again, they throw a smackdown, allowing us to reach back-to-back Hydro Cannons before the opponent reaches the Psychic. 2 Hydro Cannons, going to return Medicham to their Pokeball, and Wallface is about to be absolute food. And once again, the GOAT going to do GOAT things in the closing position, and the opponent concedes. Moving on to the next one. Galvantula into Azumarill. 4 turn versus 3 turn is really awkward. You want to throw after 2 Volt Switches or 5. I'm unable to throw after 2 as my first charge move is after 3. So I do throw after 5. So that is 20 turns for me, 21 turns for the opponent. So I only gave away 1 free turn. I am going to shield this up. The opponent goes for the Ice Beam. I'm unable to throw at good timing now, as if I threw 2 Volt Switches, the opponent would outpace to the next Ice Beam. So I throw the Discharge, looking to force the final shield or get switch advantage. The opponent commits the final shield, and we're just going to allow Galvantula to go down. I can come into Swampert. I'm going to be able to outpace them to the charge move. I throw the Hydro Cannon on the CMP. So Hydro Cannon is resisted, but still going to be enough to knock out. So we've managed to keep a shield and get rid of this threat. The opponent sends out Scrafty. Scrafty, unlike Medicham, not that bulky. The opponent goes straight for the Power-Up Punch. Power-Up Punch doesn't do a lot. However, Earthquake, going to near one-shot. I'm then going to instantly pivot out into Sableye. The opponent sends out Galarian Weezing. We still have a shield. This is a bit tricky as they do have access to Play Rough. I go straight for the Power Gem, which hits for neutral. It does a lot of damage. The opponent farms up a boatload of energy, and I'm going to call the bait. Come on, trainer, throw the Play Rough. I thought not. The opponent going to send one more Brutal Swing. I can easily shield this up. I could let it go. It doesn't really matter as Swampert is still fairly healthy, and we're just going to Shadow Claw down the remainder of the team. Moving on to the next one. This time we see Scrafty in the lead. I'm going to go straight for the Lunge. Lunge hits for neutral due to the fighting Dark typing. The opponent shields again. So many people shield this Galvantula in the lead, which I absolutely love, because that frees up Swampert to do GOAT things in the back. The opponent baits me with a Power-Up Punch. I then send a Lunge, and the opponent makes a great catch, catching it on knockdown. However, the debuff is really nice for my Sableye. Unlike the regular Sableye, Shadow Sableye pretty good against knockdown. You've already seen it in the video. I can easily tank whatever they throw. They go for the Sky Attack. So I'm going to CMP tie the opponent to the next Sky Attack, and Power Gem going to do big damage from this range. Does the opponent respect the damage? They do not. They get one shot. The opponent sends back out Scrafty. Power-Up Punch won't be lethal from this range. If using Shadow Sableye versus Scrafty, Power Gem is more energy efficient as it is only single resisted, as Fighting resists Rock, whereas Dark and Fighting both resist Dark. We can now come into Galvantula. I'm going to look to force the opponent to throw the Foul Play. The opponent full sends the Foul Play. It's now Swampert versus the World. We got 2-shield Swampert versus Lanturn, and this is going to be game over. We single resist the Spark Surf. Hits for neutral, we can tank 1. I could have easily shielded it up, but I don't know, I just couldn't really be bothered. We're just going to put the stamp of authority. I full send the Earthquake, the opponent lets it go, and we're going to be able to mud shot down Scrafty for the win, and we get a nice 2-shield flex. Moving on to the next one, we see the Bear Trap in the lead. Yikes. Instant pivot into Sableye, and the opponent sends out their own Sableye. As we have a 0-15-15, I've not won a single CMP tie ever. I think Callum on Toast actually used a 0-15-14. So if I play Callum, he might be the only person I could beat in the entire world. However, CMP isn't going to be important in this mirror as I am ahead on energy. So I'm going to be able to outpace the opponent. The opponent has double shielded. They are going to have to throw. They're not going to be able to farm us down. I'm unwilling to commit a shield because I just get mod shot down afterwards, which would be disastrous. So we allow Sableye to go down. I am going to come back into Galvantula, look for the Volt Switch farm down. The opponent is going to make a charge move, and this is going to do a lot. However, no point shielding. Foul play almost knocks out. I spam into Swampert. The opponent has Pelipper in the back, and unfortunately this is going to be RPS for the win. 2 Hydro Cannons do knock out some Pelipper if they're attack weighted, but this one looks to have good IVs. I fire off the back-to-back, but it's not going to do enough damage, and we're going to lose. You can't win them all. However, while I'm getting my ass kicked, there are some points to note from this battle. You can see there we fired off on CMP. I'm using a 6 attack Swampert. I've actually rebuilt this. I used to use one with a 1 attack, and I used to lose CMP in the mirror against Sableye and Pelipper. With a higher attack, you can potentially win all them CMP ties, so I'd recommend going for an attack weighted Swampert. Moving on to the next one. You are not in a time machine. We're actually seeing Galvantula into Hypno, a matchup that was quite common in the early seasons. Obviously, Shadow Galvantula wasn't around then. However, this was a fairly common pick back then, so was Hypno. I fire off on 4, looking to CMP tie. We did get the CMP. The opponent committed a shield. They then took me out with an Ice Punch. They then send out Gliscor to meet my Sableye. The opponent fires off the Night Slash. We easily tank one. I'm not intentionally missing bubbles there. I got some really weird stutter lag where I wasn't allowed to swipe any bubbles. However, the opponent did commit that shield. We now send out Swampert. As I've got 2 shields, I am going to shield up the Night Slash. I'm then going to just over farm by 1, fire off the Hydro Cannon. I don't want to get hit with any more wing attack damage. The opponent lets it go, then send back out Hypno. I'm then going to fire off a Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon will be returning Hypno to their Pokeball. What does the opponent have in the back? The opponent's got Scrafty, and you've already seen that Earthquake does huge damage. The opponent is unshielded, Earthquake locked and loaded, and that is going to be pretty much all she wrote. As we simul KO, and we've got Sableye alive in the back. Moving on to the next battle. We see Galvantula into Lanturn, despite us hitting for neutral the entire time and resisting the sparks. This isn't actually a positive matchup in the Zero Shield, as they do outpace us, and Surf out here looking like a good move due to Galvantula's lack of bulk. Both Lunge and Discharge are neutral, so I fire off the Lunge. The opponent going to take me out with a Surf, but that debuff is super important because it just allows me to farm them down and not take too much damage from the charge move the Lanturn is inevitably going to make. I also farm up to 4 Volt Switches before firing off the Lunge because that is the amount of energy you need for an energy ball. You may as well bait it. Not that any of us are running it, but you may as well try your luck. The opponent now sends out Knockdown. I chip him with a foul play and pivot out into Swampert. It's 2 shield Medicham in the back. Not fantastic, but I'm going to guarantee a shield with the Earthquake. The opponent does commit that first shield. They need to Psychic to take me out as I'm getting the energy for a Hydro Cannon. The opponent does throw the Ice Punch. Swampert does survive. We now got the Hydro Cannon locked and loaded. I doubt the opponent commits that final shield, so we are going to get them super low. It's now 2 shield Sableye versus the remainder of the team. We are going to shield up the Ice Punch, commit to the Shadow Claw farm down. When knocked out does return, Power Gem will be knocking out from this range. Foul play will not, so it's going to be the bait game. I shield up the Sky Attack. I'm going to full send it, hoping the opponent looks to call the bait. The opponent commits the final shield. These Shadow Claws are double resisted. They are adding up. I'm not going to reach another Power Gem, so I fire off the Foul Play, and Foul Play still gets the job done. Let's go Sableye. Moving on to the next battle. Dreadful, dreadful lead. We pivot out into Sableye. The opponent is staying in. So how I always play this, I just continue to farm up. I allow the opponent to throw a charge move. I always shield, and if they stay in, I then start throwing at good time in 1, 4 or 7. The opponent actually switches out into their own Sableye. I've got so much energy. I fire off the first foul play. The opponent lets it go, so I'm going to fire off one more foul play. I highly doubt the opponent just sacks Sableye. They do invest that shield. I can't invest my final shield here, as there's obviously got Medicham in the back. This is the absolute most basic team you're ever going to see. I'm going to go for the full Volt Switch farm down. The opponent doesn't make another charge. My spam out into Swampert. The opponent stays in. They're continuing to farm up. I'm going to fire the Earthquake. If they catch or not, this Earthquake's going to do huge damage to either Bastiodon or Medicham. The opponent lets it go. And this is where I make a misplay. I'm thinking, looking at them, they're in the red. If I can get to 2 discharges, we're going to win this game. The opponent has the Stone Edge banked, so I'm just going to put it all on Galvantula. The opponent fires off the Ice Punch. It doesn't care. They get one more counter, and that counter is going to be brutal. Look at this. The opponent gets to the charge move, and fuck my life. I'm just going to shield it up. I'm really tilted at this stage. I've got the double discharge locked and loaded. Look at this damage. It is going to take the opponent out. I think I could have played this so much better, but it is what it is. I could have either not thrown the Earthquake, just continued to overfarm and spammed Medicham with Hydro Cannons, but losing to Wallface. It is what it is. You know your team's fairly solid when you lead Galvantula into Bastiodon and you're super tilted that you lose. However, getting into this next battle, we landed the lunge on Medicham. The opponent fires off the Ice Punch. That doesn't knock out. That allows me to make one more lunge. The opponent's either going to give up a shield or lose switch. The opponent commits that shield and I'm going to aggressively switch into Sableye, as I can save that spider as a sack swap. The opponent fires off the Ice Punch. That does absolutely nothing and then send out Knockdown. I full send the Power Gem, which I think, again, a bit of a misplay. I'm still pretty tilted after losing to Wallface in the previous battle. I think double foul play definitely is the way to go. As you can see, that deep in the red now. I am going to invest the shield here. I'm then going to look to fire off on the CMP tie. Foul play will be knocking out or forcing the final shield. The opponent lets it go. That final Pokemon is Lanturn. I fire off the foul play and the opponent's CMP ties me. So a mistake from the opponent. They actually commit a final shield as well. Bit of a strange play, but I'm just going to take it. Surf will be taking us out. I can send out Swampert. The opponent sends out Medicham for no reason whatsoever and then concede. Moving on to the next one. Another Medicham. Holy smokes, Medicham lead. Super common. They pivot out into Registeel, and Registeel doesn't have the best matchup here. I'm just going to stay in as I can realign my Sableye with that Medicham later. Galvantula does resist all moves from Registeel. Registeel super defense weighted, but that still does a lot of resisted damage. They debuff me. However, Discharge should still knock out despite the debuff. The opponent lets it go, so we get rid of the threat. Back out comes Medicham. We don't reach a lunge. However, it doesn't really matter as we've got Shadow Sableye to answer this Medicham. The opponent is staying in. They're going to fire off an Ice Punch. I'm not going to commit a shield here. The opponent now sends out Knockdown. I am going to fire off a foul play. Looking to pressure a shield off the opponent. They've still got two. They do commit that shield and we send out Swampert. Swampert in the 2-to-1 shield is going to be pretty good against Knockdown. As we do outpace, I am going to shield up the Sky Attack. I can then start unleashing Hydro Cannon spam after Hydro Cannon spam. You will notice throughout this video that I always like to throw on CMP. This doesn't allow any free fast moves from the opponent. It always maximises my energy. I invest my final Protect Shield here. Swampert is now going to be able to outpace to the next Hydro Cannons. It takes them 6, 6 and 5, so the opponent could CMP time here, which they would lose. They actually take the extra, but it doesn't matter as they're not going to survive this. I can then pivot out into Sableye to answer the Medicham and the opponent concedes. Moving on to the next one. We have two bonus battles. From 9 PM UK time, when the league's rotated, I would not recommend playing at this time. You can see I'm using Shadow Galvantula for some strange reason. The first battle I attempted to play, the game gave me my Fury Cutter regular Galvantula I was using for Sylph. Interesting. I also experienced a ridiculous amount of lag, which is pretty common when the leagues rotate. Come on, Niantic, we're in season 14 now. Fix your fucking game. However, getting into the commentary, the opponent gave me a huge energy lead. We landed the foul play. I am going to be able to outpace to the Power Gems. The opponent's going to be forced to commit that final shield or lose their Knockdown. The opponent lets it go. If they come back into Drapion, they're not going to be able to Poison Sting, farm me down. The opponent is going to take me out with an Aqua Tail. So they've revealed their full moveset now. As always, we love Swampert up shield, so I send out the GOAT. Looking to close, I am going to respect the potential crunch. Let's hope the opponent doesn't Aqua Tail me. They do full send the crunch. We don't get debuffed. The opponent sends out Medicham. We're going to start unleashing the Hydro Cannons. It takes 2 to knock out. The first one goes unshielded. I'm going to look to make a catch on the spider, and that is going to be game over. Even if the opponent hits no bubbles, Ice Punch will take me out. We can now come in, fire off the Hydro Cannons. One will be pressuring the final shield off the opponent, and one is going to knock out on the CMP tie. Swampert, as always, the most ruthless closer of them all. Back out comes Drapion, and the opponent concedes. Moving on to the next battle. You can see here we get some weird stutter lag. as we face this water gun Lanturn. Even the Spark Lanturn beats Galvantula in the zero shield, so water gun is going to be really oppressive. You can see just the water guns have got us below 50% HP. The opponent fires off the surf. They then manage to farm us down. Not fantastic, but we can send out Sableye. The opponent is going to reach a Thunderbolt on minimal HP, but it is one stage debuff, so I'm not going to shield it up. It does quite a lot of damage despite being debuffed. The opponent sends out Knocked Out, and I'm going to fire off the Foul Play, hoping the opponent commits a shield, which they do, and it's time for Swampert to do Swampert things. The opponent sends out Froslass Hydro Cannon, doesn't knock out, they've only got one shield, so we full YOLO the Earthquake. The opponent shows no respect, they get one shot. So we've still got two shields versus this Knocked Out. Swampert is going to be able to outpace them to the Hydro Cannons required to win this game. I'm going to fire off the next Hydro Cannon. The opponent is going to be forced to start shielding. The opponent doesn't shield the first. We fire off the next one on the CMP tie. This one will knock out, so we'll force the final shield. We then take 5 mud shots each to make the next Hydro Cannon and Sky Attack respectively. However, Swampert, you've got to give your little buddy Shadow Sableye its moment to shine. We come in, we reach the Foul Play, and that is going to be all she wrote. GG's and thanks for playing. So those were the battles with my triple shadow team that I think is the strongest shadow team you can run in this meta. So if you're enjoying the content, smash that like button. If you're new, consider subscribing. If you like your battles featured on my channel, a link to my battle submission form is down below. I'd like to say a huge thank you to everyone for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.